Every year, millions of people walk the stone tiers of the Roman Colosseum. They stand right where more than 50,000 spectators once stood, and they imagine the roar of the crowd. You know the scene. Gladiators, weapons in hand, standing on the sun-bleached sand, their fates hanging on the whim of an emperor. But right from the start of this explainer, we need to acknowledge that this romanticized, sunlit surface, it's really only half the story.
In fact, we kind of have to ask ourselves, are we standing on a lie? Because the real secret to the games, the true story of how Rome produced its most breathtaking and brutal spectacles, was never meant to be seen in the sunlight at all. It was an illusion, and it was powered by something completely hidden right beneath their feet.
Because underneath that sand was a dense, two-story underground factory built for one specific purpose: to engineer death on an industrial scale. So today, we're going to do a full 3D breakdown of this incredible machine. We're going to descend into the dark, sweltering engine room below the arena floor, where these brutal spectacles were actually orchestrated.
Section 1. Replacing the water shows. The evolution of the arena floor.
Okay, to really understand this underground machine, we have to start with how it all began. When the Colosseum was first inaugurated around 80 AD under Emperor Titus, the arena floor didn't actually have this complex underground structure yet. Early on, they would literally flood the floor to stage epic mock naval battles with real ships, which were known as naumachia. Now visually, absolutely spectacular, but logistically, incredibly messy. So about a decade later, Emperor Domitian made a revolutionary pivot. He completely sacrificed the water shows to build a permanent, highly sophisticated underground mechanical stage. He wanted absolute control, and he wanted endless variety.
Which brings us to a really important word, the hypogeum. This comes from the Greek word for underground, and it refers to the dense, two-story masonry labyrinth built directly beneath the Colosseum's arena floor. And I want to make this absolutely clear. This was not just some basement for storing props. This was the beating heart, the literal engine room of the entire Colosseum.
Moving on to Section 2, Anatomy of the Labyrinth. Peeling back the sand. I want you to mentally peel away that wooden, sand-covered arena floor. When you strip away the surface, the sheer scale and layout of this subterranean world is just astonishing. We're talking about an area roughly the size of a modern football field. It's a vast, two-level maze of tunnels, chambers, and shafts constructed from travertine limestone, brick, and Roman concrete. Right down the middle runs a massive central corridor, and that's flanked by these perfectly symmetrical branching passages. It's truly a masterpiece of architectural logistics that perfectly mirrors the oval shape of the arena up above. So who or what was actually moving through these corridors? Well, basically, everything. The Hypogeum was seamlessly connected to the outside world via a series of hidden tunnels. For example, there was a secret eastern passage, the Gate of Life, that connected directly to the Ludus Magnus, which was Rome's largest gladiator school. This meant fighters could enter the arena completely unseen. You also had VIP access routes for the emperor and the magistrates, so they could completely bypass the 50,000 regular citizens outside. But down in the dark, it was also packed with exotic beasts brought in from the furthest edges of the empire, alongside a massive army of stagehands, enslaved people, and enormous pieces of mobile scenery.
Section 3. Elevators of the Ancient World. Engineering the impossible.
Put yourself in the shoes of a Roman engineer for a second. The emperor demands that a wild tiger, or maybe an entire forest of trees, magically appears out of thin air on the sand above. How exactly do you make that happen? Well, the answer lies in the number 28. The original system designed by the Romans featured 28 distinct lifts, positioned all along the outer rim of the arena. Each of these was specifically engineered to hoist caged wild animals directly from the dark underbelly right up onto the bright stage. The mechanics of these lifts required a brilliantly precise but totally brutal sequence. First, a dangerous wild animal is coaxed into a cage through a side door. Second, a team of 8 workers down in the dark has to push these long wooden levers to rotate a massive vertical drum, which is called a capstan. Third, thick ropes and a really complex series of pulleys slowly hoist that heavy cage upward. And then, the true genius part, as the cage ascends and hits a specific stopping point, the physical impact triggers counterweights. Those counterweights simultaneously flip open the front door of the cage and the trapdoor above. It was absolutely grueling manual labor for the guys pushing the capstan, but to the audience up top, it translated into pure theatrical magic.
But wait, it wasn't just animals popping out of trapdoors. The Romans wanted entire immersive landscapes. In the main central corridor of the Hypogeum, they used separate winches and ropes to hoist massive mobile platforms. These carried incredibly heavy props, think artificial trees, boulders, even small buildings. Because space was so tight, these platforms had to be raised up at an angle through slots in the walls. Then, when they reached the top, they were ingeniously flipped horizontally so they'd align perfectly flush with the arena floor. It's like a giant, deadly pop-up book.
That brings us to Section 4, the view from the dark, the human cost of the spectacle.
So far, we've been totally geeking out over the engineering, right? But we really need to juxtapose the bright world above with the oppressive reality below. If you were a stagehand or an enslaved person working in the Hypogeum, your environment was nothing short of a nightmare. You existed in a perpetual twilight, lit only by flickering, smoky torches. You suffered oppressive, sweltering heat during the Roman summers and bone-chilling dampness in the winter. The stench of confined exotic animals mixed with human sweat would have been overwhelming, and the noise? Completely deafening. You'd hear the creaking of heavy wooden machinery, the roaring of panthers and bears, men shouting orders, and the terrifying echoing boom of 50,000 footsteps pounding right above your head. And through all of this total chaos, these workers were under immense pressure to hit exact musical cues from organs and drums playing up above, just to ensure those trapdoors opened at the precise dramatic second.
Meanwhile, right above their heads, you've got 50,000 spectators sitting in the fresh Mediterranean air. They were all neatly divided by social class, from the emperor and senators way down at the bottom up to the plebeians at the top. They were even shaded from the hot sun by the velarium, this massive retractable canvas awning operated by sailors from the Roman Navy. The audience was entirely, blissfully separated from the brutal mechanical reality churning away just inches beneath the sand.
So we've got to end on this thought. When you look at the sheer scale of the mechanics, the sweat, and the darkness, who really powered the glory of Rome? Was it the emperor sitting up in his royal box? Or was it the hundreds of unseen slaves and stagehands turning those heavy capstans in the pitch black? It really leaves you questioning the true human cost behind humanity's greatest architectural marvel. Next time you picture the Colosseum, don't just look at the sand. Look underneath it.